Hi everyone, I'm going to give you a quick rundown of how I pin models and also a quick rundown on how to magnetize a Convergence of Cyriss Battlebox heavy vector set, which is right here. So I got one of these guys. Additionally, I also have the battle group, so what I'm going to do is I'm going to take the heavy vector that's in there and magnetize it and make it so it's interchangeable with the actual big kit. So one of the first things you want to do is you want to pull everything out of the bag and, you know, sort it all out. Here you go. There's a ton of other stuff. That's all fun. We're going to put that to the side because I've actually cleaned off some things already. One of the big things here, and one of the big tools that I use for pinning, is a very small thing. It is a T-pin. And this T-pin you can get any kind of store. Really, it's mainly used to hold up billboards. It's got a nice fine point on there. And what I do when I start pinning something is I find the kind of the piece with the nub on it, such as that. And I usually take the T-pin, I go ahead and I score a small hole into it, and this works the same thing for metal miniatures. So score a little hole in that, and it gives me a nice starting point. I go ahead and take out my pin vise, which is specifically set for that. So then I go ahead and just drill out a small hole. Got to keep it straight. I almost never use a Dremel. I have this fear of the Dremel going straight into my hand. Since I've already used the pin vise and already gone to my hand with that, I don't want to go to the hospital. So other part of the tool I end up using is I use paper clips for all my pinning tools. And since paper clips are really cheap, I also use them to score things as well. So this nub there is usually bad, so I usually chop that off. Then I go ahead and I fit in the paper clip into the spot there. Use a tool to kind of help make sure it goes in solid. There we go. And what I usually do, and this is what I mean by scoring, so I usually make sure the paper clip is all the way in. Then I go to the very tip of it. I chop off very little, so there's very little of it actually sticking out. Kind of see that, and actually that's almost too much. Just a little bit more. So as you can tell, it's just barely out of there, and I use that in the countersink, or inside here. I use that to just kind of score that hole. I'll make sure I break that up to see. So on the inside, now you can see exactly where that piece is going. This is a great way to make sure that your pin's going straight, and also a great way to make sure your magnets are lined up directly through the center. So I usually take my T-pin, go ahead and score that hole that was just made by the paper clip, and then I go ahead. Come on. And the reason why I have the scored holes is because whenever I use a pin vise, it always seems to walk a little bit, so therefore you're not going to get a straight pin in there. And by walking means when you start to drill in, it starts to move off to the side a little bit. So there you go, got a nice clean hole there. Fits in there rather snugly, even with just a bit of the pin there. So I go ahead and then I pull out that remaining pin. Let me take a second. And there we go. Throw that off to the side, or throw it on the little mat here. There we go. 2 clean holes. There we go. If this was just for pinning here, then what I would do is I would just make a longer pin. Just pop it in here like this. Go ahead and clip it off with some space. There you go. And pop it into the miniature. Done. That is a pin. Well, you make sure you put glue on it though too, because that helps out. So there you go, that's how you do a pinning. So using this same method is actually how I do the magnet kits. So first of all, I would score this, make it so it's got that little nub hanging out, and as you can tell with the Convergence kits here, you have a whole bunch of parts that are going to be going into that as well. So what I usually do is I end up scoring all of them exactly the same, so they're all equal. That way the magnets all go straight in every single one of them. Make sure I didn't lose the model piece I was just working on. So all of them match. And then what I do is I go ahead and get my magnets. I've got I use 2 different drill bits or pin vices all the time, so that's another hint that I use. One is specifically for my paper clips, and the other one generally I use for brass routing and other purposes. And this one I have a specialized drill bit that I got that matches exactly what the magnet size are. And for this here, works really nice on plastic. You just want to be kind of very light on it. You don't want to go super deep. We kind of build just kind of drill out the hole there. You're also using that previous drilled hole as a guideline, so it doesn't walk any further from there. As you can tell, there's a little lip there. What I'll end up doing is taking my blade and kind of chop that off. Make sure you don't cut yourself. Very careful around blades. So there you go. Have that, it's sunk in a little bit. I go through the same thing for the other piece. Just kind of cut it out. And there you go. So that's a little bit deeper there. It's kind of harder to tell. Try to get some light in there. Alright, so we've got those 2 pieces. They're pretty much ready to go. I would also then drill out all the pieces for the other ones. So what I did for these, specifically for the vectors, if I could find a piece, it helps to be prepared with everything right away. For the vectors, what I did, and here's a completed piece here, so I sunk in the magnet into there. And I used a longer magnet for the top piece. So since that nub was just a little bit too small, I believe I used 1/8 magnets for these. That's what I use for pretty much most of my jack kits. Pretty strong, pretty sturdy. They don't really move that much. But I use a thicker magnet so it can hang out of the piece a little bit, and that kind of replaces what used to be that nub that we're connected to. So there you go, kind of sticks in there just like that. I have another magnet there for a different piece to attach into the shoulder. So that's kind of how a great way to magnetize things. Another quick thing I can give you as well is when you're going with a kit here that's going to have multiple arms, you can have most of those arms, if you put them into a normal magnet slot, if it's something heavy, it will fall. So you kind of see where if you kind of shake it, it will fall a little bit. So what I've done here is I've actually drilled out a small hole here, and I've used a pin on the side here for this jack. So I can go ahead and just pop it in there. Once it hits that magnet point, it is pretty solid. It's not going to go anywhere. The heads, since they weren't too, they're pretty simple, I just actually drilled out a small hole and just made it so it's a pin. You can magnetize that. I didn't see it was really necessary. I was running short on small magnets, so the head's not going to fall out, especially after you prime it. And that is pretty much how you do a battle kit. I'll go ahead and kind of show you what I did specifically for this arms here to kind of show you what I did. So that left or right shoulder is kind of the tricky one. The right shoulder, well, sorry, I got this all mixed up. The left shoulder is stationary, so that can always be glued on, and then you can glue that point directly into that joint there, and then that will actually swap out with whatever pieces you put in there. So you can put in, you know, the monitor's arm there. There's that monitor. I don't know. There's I should know them a little bit more, but there's that arm. You also have the claw arm that goes into there as well. Since that arm is stationary, that one wasn't too hard to do. This arm over here is the one that was the hardest one, which is the right arm. So first of all, I had to build the shoulder. Shoulder is the same thing as the other one. I went ahead and just put in a pin, popped it in there like that, and then what I did is there's actually a since this shoulder actually uses, this specific shoulder uses two different arms, uses the pulverizer here. I just put a magnet inside there and a magnet inside there. And then what I did also is, since the other vector that's in here, I made another one for that too, since it's got the two pieces. And you can pull that off, and you could put in the saw blade arm, or launcher, which we already showed, and there you go. And so that is pretty much how you could magnetize a vector. There you go. Thanks for watching.